Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you've ever Googled your own name and felt that sudden shiver down your spine seeing your home address, your phone number, or even your relatives just plastered across the screen, well, you are definitely not alone. We literally all share that same incredibly frustrating desire to just completely scrub our personal data from the internet. So today we're diving straight into this high-stakes cat and mouse game between everyday users who are just trying to hide, the data brokers who are trying to profit off them, and the lawmakers desperately trying to keep up.
Right off the bat, it's the million-dollar question. Can you actually erase yourself from the internet? I mean, we love to believe we have control over our digital footprints, right? We click unsubscribe, we meticulously clear our cookies, and we kind of just think we've vanished. But the truth? That sense of control is mostly just an illusion. And as we're going to see, the real solution to taking back your privacy, it really isn't what you might think.
Section 1. The data removal illusion. Let's talk about paid versus manual opt-outs.
So, when people get desperate to hide their data, what do? They pull out their wallets. There is this massive, booming industry of paid data removal services that promise to act as your personal digital bodyguards, wiping your info from thousands of brokers. But you've got to hear this absolutely wild statistic. According to a recent Consumer Reports study, over a 4-month period, these paid services had a success rate ranging from a dismal 4% to, at best, 68%. Think about that. You're paying a monthly subscription, and sometimes less than 1 in 20 of your profiles are actually staying deleted. No way, right?
And this perfectly highlights the real issue. That same study found that if you just sit down and do the manual opt-outs yourself, your success rate jumps all the way up to 70%. So why the massive gap? Well, it's because data brokers are relentless. They build their databases using public records, birth certificates, property records, the whole shebang. So even if a paid service successfully gets your file deleted on a Tuesday, that broker's automated system might just scrape the public registry and rebuild your entire profile by Thursday. It's literally a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. Which brings us to Section 2, America's privacy law patchwork, the state-level chaos.
So, if tech solutions and paid services are struggling to keep up, where's the government in all this? Well, because we don't have a comprehensive federal privacy law stepping in, states have been left to just figure it out on their own. And honestly, it is a mess. Just consider the sheer number of states involved: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Montana, and that's just a fraction. Businesses are now navigating this incredibly complex patchwork quilt of state laws. Every single state has its own slightly different definitions, different rules, different deadlines. If you're a business operating nationwide right now, this reality is basically your worst nightmare.
All right, Section 3, cracking down on brokers, how states are targeting them.
Because of this messy patchwork, individual states are getting aggressive. They're actively turning up the heat on the data broker ecosystem. And what's really fascinating is seeing this play out in real-time legislation. For instance, Vermont recently introduced Bill H211. They are a prime example of a state basically saying, okay, enough is enough, and taking direct aim right at the wallets of these data brokers.
The stakes here are getting incredibly high, and it's all in the math. Vermont just hiked their annual data broker registration fee by a whopping 800%, going from a measly $100 up to $900. But the real teeth of this law, the failure penalty. It used to be $50 a day, capped at $10,000. Now, it is $200 a day, completely uncapped. So if you're a broker trying to fly under the radar in Vermont, those daily fines are going to snowball into bankruptcy incredibly fast.
Meanwhile, out on the West Coast, California is taking a totally different, highly centralized approach. Thanks to their Delete Act, starting January 1, 2026, Californians get access to the Drop platform. This is huge. It allows a resident to submit just one single, free, verifiable request, and it legally forces every single registered data broker in the entire state to delete their information. It is essentially a master kill switch for your personal data.
Moving on to Section 4. Enter global privacy control, shifting the power dynamic.
But, not everyone lives in California or Vermont. So what's your ultimate weapon in this chaotic legal landscape? Enter the Global Privacy Control, or GPC for short. This is the real game changer. It's a browser-level signal, basically a hidden piece of code transmitted through HTTP headers to every website you visit. Without you ever having to click a single one of those annoying cookie banners, it automatically shouts, "Do not sell or share my personal information," to every site you land on. It fundamentally flips the power right back to you, the everyday user.
And here is why businesses are suddenly panicking.
As of January 1, 2026, a massive 12 U.S. states now legally mandate that businesses absolutely must honor this universal opt-out signal. It's not a polite request anymore. In states like Colorado, Connecticut, and Texas, ignoring a user's GPC signal is a direct, punishable violation of state law.
Now, things get technically fascinating when your GPC signal actually conflicts with your user account. Let's say you have an account with a site where you previously clicked yes to sharing data, but you just turned on GPC in your browser. What happens then? Well, under laws like California's CPRA, the business has to process the GPC signal immediately. The browser wins, always. But they are allowed to notify you, like, hey, there's a conflict here, and ask if you'd like your account settings to override your browser.
Okay, but what if money is involved? Say you're getting a sweet 10% subscription discount for letting a site track you for targeted ads. Again, if you show up with GPC turned on, they must honor the signal instantly. However, they can flash a pop-up saying, hey, just so you know, honoring this opt-out means you lose your discount. Do you want to affirm your withdrawal from the program? It completely forces a transparent, upfront choice onto the user.
And if you're thinking, well, nobody even uses this, look out for California's AB 566. This law dictates that by January 1, 2027, all the major browsers, we're talking Chrome, Safari, Edge, they must include built-in, easy-to-find functionality for GPC. Right now, you kind of need a special extension or a privacy-focused browser to use it. But by 2027, it's going to be baked right into the literal fabric of the internet for absolutely everyone.
Final section, Section 5, Taking Back Your Data. Enforcing compliance. Because consumers are finally getting armed with these automatic tools, there are severe consequences for businesses that choose to look the other way. This quote from Julie Rubosh, Chief Privacy Officer at SourcePoint, perfectly captures the mood right now. She says, if you have a privacy mechanism on your website that's not working, it's a tell for regulators that you're not paying attention. Regulators are actively hunting. A broken opt-out link or an ignored GPC signal, it is literally blood in the water for state attorneys general, and it triggers incredibly costly investigations.
And we are absolutely not just talking about a slap on the wrist here. Just look at some of these recent settlement fines under the California Consumer Privacy Act. Sephora, hit with $1.2 million. Tractor Supply Company, $1.35 million. Healthline Media took a massive $1.55 million hit. And in all these cases, the core failure was their inability to properly honor opt-out requests, specifically including those global privacy control signals. This is not just legal theory anymore, folks. It's a very harsh financial reality. So to survive this intense crackdown, businesses are rushing to deploy these highly sophisticated consent management platforms, or CMPs. Tools from companies like Acceptio or Dodomi are now hard-coded to catch that invisible GPC signal the exact millisecond a page loads. And to prove they're compliant, they trigger little pop-up notifications that clearly say, opt-out request honored. It's all about logging the consent and visibly proving to you that the law is being followed.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. The laws are finally shifting, the tech giants are being forced to adapt, and massive financial penalties are actually keeping businesses in check. The power to protect your data is quite literally being built right into the browser you're probably using at this very moment. So the only question left to ask is, your browser is ready to protect you, but are you actually going into your settings and using it? That's all for today. Thanks so much for joining me, and seriously, I highly encourage you to go check those browser settings right now.